Hello, Jacksonites, and welcome to another video. Yes, you read the title right. I am reviewing Godzilla Raids again. Yeah. No, I am not going on a massive re-reviewing the Godzilla series for a third time spiel. I'm doing this mainly out of necessity because recently it came to my attention when Kaiju Network offered to re-edit some of my Godzilla episodes, and he asked me, what would I prefer to see be done first, and I suggested, why not the Raids Again review? But then he brought to my attention that the footage was unusable. So I went back and I watched the episode, and I saw what he meant. I did not realize this until a few weeks ago that my original Raids Again review was so badly pixelated, it was damn near unwatchable. So I figured, okay, I got to redo this at a certain point. So I deleted that video, and I've also deleted my original Godzilla versus Ghidorah review for pretty much the same reason. It was damn near unwatchable because the audio was 1 second delayed from the video. So obviously that's unwatchable too. So I deleted that. I will be doing a Godzilla vs. Ghidorah review once again soon. I don't think I'm doing it tomorrow, but I will be doing it soon. And those, to my knowledge, those are the only two Godzilla videos that got so badly glitched out that they had to be redone. So, oh well. So today, yes, once again, I am reviewing Godzilla Raids Again. Also, I've been in a bit of a kaiju mood lately, as well as a zombie movie mood. So there's a strange mix for you. So and I tried to have a guest for this one, but since this is one of my favorite Godzilla movies, and also because I couldn't get a guest, I figured, nah, what the fuck, I'll just do it myself. So yeah, there's that. I'm a little rusty at this. It's been a while since I reviewed Godzilla movies. So my personal history with Godzilla Raids Again, and also the fan reaction that I've seen. The fan reaction to Godzilla Raids Again seems to be very divisive, but mostly towards the negative side. Many people consider Godzilla Raids Again to be one of the absolute worst Godzilla movies ever made. I can understand why, but I have also seen some people come out and say that they actually do like the movie quite a bit and think that's one of the most underrated Godzilla movies, to which I can agree with that myself. As I've stated before, Godzilla Raids Again is, in fact, one of my favorite Godzilla movies. And to be 100% honest, I enjoy watching it more than the original Godzilla. Having said that, don't get me wrong, Godzilla Raids Again is a very flawed film and is definitely an inferior film to the original Gojira. Do not get me wrong. This movie is very flawed. It's got a lot of problems and is one of the biggest examples of a quickie sequel that I have ever seen in my entire life. So yeah, there's that. But still, my personal history with Godzilla Raids Again, as I've said before, I own the Cinematic Trash is here. Hello. I own the not Turner Classic Movies, the Classic Media edition of Godzilla Raids Again. It includes the original Gojira plus Godzilla King of the Monsters, Godzilla Raids Again, Mothra vs. Godzilla, Ghidorah Three-Headed Monster, Invasion of the Astro Monster, Godzilla's Revenge, and Terra Mechagodzilla. And of course, I actually think the third Godzilla movie on that pack that I watched was Godzilla Raids Again, because I'd always been curious about Godzilla Raids Again, because I always said everybody talks about the original, or everyone talks about the first Godzilla movie. Not many people talk about the second Godzilla movie. And also another aspect of the film that intrigued me was the fact that Godzilla fought Anguirus in the film. And I've always considered Anguirus to be one of the most underrated Godzilla kaiju. So that also had me intrigued. So the third Godzilla, the first one that I watched, believe it or not, was actually Godzilla's Revenge. And after that was Ghidorah Three-Headed Monster, and then after that was Godzilla Raids Again. And I sat down and watched Godzilla Raids Again, expecting actually nothing. I went into the film with no expectations at all. I knew it was going to be a black and white. I knew it was going to be super 50s, and I knew it was going to be very derivative of the original, kind of. But I came out of the film very entertained, and I thought it was a very enjoyable film. And as the years have gone by, my enjoyment for the film, believe it or not, has actually increased, especially due to the fact that on the American version of Godzilla Raids Again, which is a bad movie, the American cut of Godzilla Raids Again is a legitimately bad movie. But it has the fun audio commentary with Steve Reifel and friends, and I love that commentary. It's one of my favorite audio commentaries, not just for a Godzilla movie, but for films in general. So that really heightened my enjoyment for the film. And I always look back on this movie with fond memories. And I do think it's one of the most underrated Godzilla movies ever made. Though, again, I will always reiterate, having said that, I do agree, Raids Again is a very flawed film. Very, very, very flawed film. But I'll talk about that when I get to the pros and cons of the film. But before we do that, let's jump into the plot. Two pilots named Shoichi Tsukioka and Koji Kobayashi, played by Hiroshi Koizumi and Minoru Chiaki, respectively. Hiroshi Koizumi is debatably my favorite Toho actor. Are hunting for schools of fish for a tuna cannery in Osaka. Kobayashi's plane malfunctions, and he is forced to land near an island named Iwato Island, which is an uninhabited strip of rocks formed by volcanic eruptions. Of course, it's volcanic. Tsukioka looks for Kobayashi and finds him safe, only with a sprained wrist. And while talking and recuperating, the two men hear some strange sounds, and they find two kaiju duking it out. Tsukioka immediately recognizes one of the monsters to be another Godzilla, and the two monsters then fall off a cliff into the ocean. This movie takes place about a year or so after the events of the original Godzilla film. At least that's what I gather. Tsukioka and Kobayashi return to Osaka and report to the authorities and find out that the other monster Godzilla was fighting is a monster named Anguirus. A group of scientists with the two pilots researched Anguirus in a book written by a Polish scientist. Godzilla and Anguirus lived around the same time millions of years ago, and there is an intense rivalry between the two monsters. Okay. Archaeologist Kyohei Yamane, once again played by Takashi Shimura. I'm too used to King Kong Escape's shitty writing. Who himself also experienced Godzilla's attack in 1954, of course, is also present as meaning and shows a film which is composed of stock footage from the original Gojira, but whatever, of the original Godzilla attacking Tokyo. He confirms that this is a second Godzilla member of the same species and that it and Anguirus were probably brought back to life by the same hydrogen bomb. In the Japanese version of Raids Again, it is clearly stated that this is a second Godzilla, whereas in the American version, it's stated that this is the first of its kind of. But yes, indeed, this is the second Godzilla to raid again after the death of the first Godzilla. Anyway, the two monsters were probably brought back to life by the same hydrogen bomb test that awoke the original Godzilla. Yamane states that there is no way to kill Godzilla because, of course, Daisuke Serizawa, who is the inventor of the oxygen destroyer that killed the original Godzilla, had died along with the original Godzilla and burned the formula. Yamane, though, suggests that the military should use flares on Godzilla to attract him away from the shore, as Godzilla becomes angry when it sees lights because the hydrogen bomb's bright explosion had awakened and mutated it. I actually really like that plot point. It adds another level to Godzilla's character, that he's clearly not just a mindless beast. He has some kind of sentience to him. Godzilla arrives on the shore of Osaka, and while a blackout of all city lights is enforced, JSDF jets are sent to shoot flares from their planes to lead Godzilla away from the shore. He, of course, sees them, and as Yamane predicted, starts to follow them and leave. Meanwhile, a prison truck transporting dangerous criminals is in another part of the country, and all these criminals, who use body language, convey to each other that the cover of darkness caused by the city's blackout provides a great opportunity to escape from prison. They beat up 2 policemen guarding them inside the truck and run away. A few of them find a gasoline truck and they use it to escape. However, in the ensuing chase, the truck crashes into an industrial building and starts a massive fire. This fire, which is much brighter than the plane's flares, attracts Godzilla back to the shore of Osaka. A few minutes later, of course, Anguirus swims to shore and the 2 monsters duke it out in the middle of Osaka. In the not the very first, but the first long knockdown drag-out brawl between Godzilla and another kaiju. The 2 creatures fight in an intensely long battle while destroying several buildings, including the tuna cannery that Tsukioka and Kobayashi work for. And in the course of the battle, the criminals are drowned in the subway when it is flooded by the thrashing of the 2 monsters. Godzilla finally bites Anguirus' neck and throws it upside down into a moat near Osaka Castle. Godzilla then fires its atomic ray at Anguirus, which burns it to death in the ruins of the famed castle. Kobayashi is transferred to a Hokkaido plant during a company party. Tsukioka and Hidemi, who came to visit, and Kobayashi are notified that Godzilla destroyed one of the company fishing boats. The military and Tsukioka begin a massive search for Godzilla, and Tsukioka spots Godzilla swimming to the shore of a small icy island. He notifies the cannery, and Kobayashi takes off in his plane to switch shifts with Tsukioka. Kobayashi dives his plane towards Godzilla to distract it from walking back into the ocean, and Tsukioka, who has transferred to the Air Force, travels on a jet with an old friend, played by Yoshio Tsuchiya. They drop bombs on Godzilla, but they are unsuccessful, and then Godzilla then wades towards shore, and Kobayashi dives towards Godzilla again. However, he fires his atomic ray in Kobayashi's plane, and it crashes into an icy mountain, which of course kills Kobayashi and causes a small avalanche. Tsukioka is devastated, but realizes the military can shoot missiles at this mountain to cause a massive avalanche to bury Godzilla alive, thereby at least freezing it in suspended animation. The jets fire their missiles to bury Godzilla in snow and ice up to his mix section. And the jets return to base to reload, and Tsukioka is authorized to fly his own jet. The jets return to the icy island, only to find that Godzilla is now digging his way out of the previous avalanche, and they fire a fresh round of ammo at the mountain and triggers a massive new avalanche, which buries Godzilla up to his neck. Tsukioka then fires off his own missiles, which fully buries Godzilla completely, thereby finishing the job and not killing Godzilla, but defeating him and sealing him up in suspended animation. The men return home and receive the homage of a grateful nation, and Tsukioka and the woman he loves are at last able to go forward with their lives and live happily ever after, leading into the shit stain that is King Kong versus Godzilla. Fuck you. So how about this plot? Obviously, yes, Godzilla Raids Again is a massive cash grab. And as Sean puts it in his 30 Days of Godzilla review for Raids Again, Toho was drunk off the success of the original Godzilla, which of course was a massive, massive, massive big fucking hit, and wanted to cash in on their own success and pumped out this quickie sequel. And I say this is a quickie sequel for a good reason. The original Godzilla was released November 3rd, 1954. Godzilla Raids Again was released April 24th, 1955. So that's December, January, February, March, April. 3 months and 21 days. No, 5 months. 5 months and 21 days after the original. At least Son of Kong had 10 months. Oi. So yes, this movie is very rushed. And it has a story that is very derivative of the original. It's kind of like a big retread, but it carries the main A plot stuff of the original Godzilla and then just brings that into the sequel. It leaves away the interesting B and C stories of the original Godzilla. for better or for worse. I will say that I am glad that they didn't do a complete retread of the original Godzilla by just having one monster again. So at least they have two monsters to kind of keep it interesting, which apparently that's an idea that Toho wanted to do in, I think, the mid-70s, was make a shot-for-shot remake of the original Godzilla, but just done in color with new actors. What? So, yeah, at least there is a lot of new stuff in this film, which I am glad for. Obviously, it cements the idea of having other monsters and having monster fights, but still, this story is very derivative. It's very rushed, but despite that, I like the story. It does feel like a legitimate continuation of the original Gojira. It doesn't feel like a movie that was supposed to be one thing, but then the executives decided, hey, let's just make it this. Kind of like with what I suspect they did with Gamera 2. I really do. This movie does feel sincere in it being a sequel to the original Gojira. Everyone was saying, okay, this is a sequel. No doubt about it. So let's make it a sequel. And I do feel like it is the continuity and the sense of progression with the original Gojira is there, and it's very solid. So that's cool. So with all that being said, let's get into the pros and cons of Godzilla Raids Again. Pro number one is that this movie has a decent cast. It's, well, I don't like Emiko in the original Godzilla, so actually I probably would have to say this movie has a good cast, because in hindsight, well, the cast for the original Gojira, for the most part, they do good. Can't deny that the cast for the original Gojira is very, very prototypey. It's very, very experimental. While most of the cast members, they give a good performance despite them being only in the acting business for maybe a year. I mean, in Akira Takarada's case, he was in there for a year. In Akihiko Hirata's case, he was in there for almost 2 years, maybe. Same case here with a lot of these actors. They weren't in the acting business for that long. I mean, hell, this was Hiroshi Koizumi's first Godzilla movie. But I like this movie's cast a little bit more than the original Gojira because they're a little more fun. Excuse me. One of the biggest reasons why I don't think the original Gojira is so rewatchable is because I feel like it has just a sense of glumness to it that this movie does not. Oh yeah, and George Takei does the English dub for the American cut. Oh my. You got to know who George Takei is. Oh my god. He was the Asian dude in the original Star Trek. I can't. What the hell was George Takei's character's name in the original Star Trek? I can't remember. But George Takei is gay. What? I mean, gay as fuck. Cool. Anyway, Zulu, that was his name, yeah. Oh, there's a window open, so well. No! What was I talking about? The big guy. Sulu, yeah, that was his name, not Zulu. But yeah, I like this movie's cast. Hiroshi Koizumi, yes, this was his first Godzilla movie, but he does a good job as Tsukioka. He's a little happy-go-lucky, but he's just a good-hearted guy who looks out for his friends, looks out for his family, looks out for his loved ones, and enjoys his work, and he tries his best to be proactive in this situation that's literally dropped onto his lap. So that's good. Minoru Chiaki as Koji Kobayashi. I feel like he's a bit of a prototypey version of Snapping Turtle from the original Mothra. Because he's so fun. He's a jolly, bumbly, just fun guy. And he's kind of a bit of a comic relief character for this film, but he's not forced and he's not annoying. He's just he's fun. That's the best way I can describe him. He's just a fun character, and certainly could have been worse. Takashi Shimura as Dr. Yamane, he's pretty much the same as he was in the original Godzilla. He's not as moody and he's not as glum as he was in the original Gojira. Though he's only in this movie for maybe 4 or 5 minutes. But he still does a good job. And Yoshio Tsuchiya as Tajima, who is the old friend of Hiroshi Koizumi's character. Again, he's only in the movie for maybe 3 or 4 minutes, but he still does a good job. This was also, I believe, Yoshio Tsuchiya's first Toho, well, not first Toho movie, it was first kaiju movie. And of course, Haruo Nakajima does a great job as the original as Godzilla, and Katsumi Tezuka does a good job as Anguirus, even though he's not really in. Anguirus isn't in the movie that much, unfortunately, but whatever. So the cast overall is fairly decent. There's not much to say about them because they're just here to fill up the cast and have main characters to be attached to. But still, the characters, they're serviceable, certainly. And again, I like them a little bit more than the cast in the original Gojira. Pro number 2 is the music score. Now, the music score was not done by Akira Ifukube. The music was done actually by Masaru Sato, who is probably my second favorite Japanese film composer of all time. My favorite, of course, being Akira Ifukube. But Masaru Sato, I believe Masaru Sato is as good as Akira Ifukube for different reasons. Akira Ifukube will always be like the #1 greatest Japanese film composer of all time. And he created in my opinion, some of the absolute greatest film scores ever made. Masaru Sato is just a hair's breadth behind him. His scores are very, very, very good, again, for different reasons. A lot of time they're a lot more jazzy. They're a lot more catchy. And also sometimes they're a lot more creepy. One of my favorite examples is his score for The H-Man. And in this case, I really like Masaru Sato's score for Godzilla Raids Again. My one problem with it is that it's not used that much, unlike the American version, which, it kind of cuts out a lot of Masaru Sato's music. But in the Japanese version, there's a lot of quiet moments. But Masaru Sato's music, it kind of that's what music is for. It enhances the mood. The main theme that he uses for the film, it's kind of like a low droning sound, or not like really a droning sound. It's hard to describe. I refer to it as the main theme of Godzilla Raids Again. I love it. It's kind of reminiscent of the theme that plays when Godzilla is first coming ashore, when he does his first big attack on, or not first, but the big attack on Tokyo in the original Godzilla. I do feel like he was inspired somewhat by that. I love it. It's a little creepy, but it's also very catchy, and it kind of gives you a sense of doom that's approaching, which I do like. And again, I think Masaru Sato, in his own way, is every bit as good as Akira Ifukube. Not better, because nobody's ever better than Akira Ifukube, but as good. That's a pretty good. That's a pretty good title. So yeah, I like the score. Pro number 3 is, like I said, the eerie quiet scenes. Now, D-Man 1954 says that this is his least favorite Godzilla movie because of all the quiet moments. To which I say, dude, what's wrong with you? I like the eerie quiet moments. And this is one thing that Adam Noyes praised in his Godzilla Vlogs episode of Godzilla Raids Again. He took note of all the quiet moments in Godzilla Raids Again. I love them. I absolutely love them. One of my favorite Universal horror movies is the original Mummy from 1932. And for many reasons, I've actually thought about reviewing that film. But one of my favorite aspects about the original Mummy is its use of silence. Now, it does have a lot more music than both Dracula and Frankenstein, which Universal learned a lot from their mistakes on those two films. And I will never ever call Dracula and Frankenstein good movies. Never, ever, ever. Both films, in my eyes, are utter garbage. The Mummy, on the other hand, I think is awesome. Well, it does have a bit more music than Dracula or Frankenstein. It still is a very, very, very quiet film. And especially for the opening scene where you have Swan Lake that plays over the opening credits, but then for the next 15 minutes or so, the movie is damn near dead silent, except for when people are talking. But one of my favorite scenes is when the dumbass dude is muttering out the ancient text to revive Imhotep. All you hear is him, like you can barely hear him muttering. And then the camera pans over to Boris Karloff, who is Imhotep, and he wakes up. No music whatsoever, and there's barely any sound. It is so eerie. It is so spine-chilling. Just to watch him lay there, and his eyes open slowly, and his arms pull himself free of the bandages. It is so eerie to watch, and it leaves me like on the edge of my seat every time I watch that. It doesn't really scare me per se, because none of the original Universal horror movies really scared me, but it definitely is very eerie. And I feel like that is something that Godzilla Raids Again gets right very, very, very well. Specifically when Godzilla and Anguirus are attacking Osaka, there's a lot of moments where there's just dead silence, especially during the build-up to the Godzilla approaching Osaka. There's a lot of moments where it's just dead silent. All you, like, for example, when you see the JSDF planes flying overhead to launch the flares, all you hear is the sound of the engines droning. There's no sound whatsoever except for that, and it's very, very, very eerie. And I'm sure must have brought back some flashback memories of the Tokyo fire raids, which not long before the first A-bomb was dropped, Japan was firebombed for 3 days straight and had about 100,000 people killed because of that. And there was a blackout, and all you'd hear is the sound of planes droning over. So I'm sure that must have been very, very, very eerie. So I like the eerie, quiet moments in this movie. It adds a lot of atmosphere to the film, and once again, it creates a sense of impending doom, which I really, really do like. And makes me think. It does make me think if the original Godzilla movie attack was Hiroshima, then this one is Nagasaki. There's no real contest on which one was worse. So the sense of impending doom of having that happen once again certainly is a bit scary to think about. So I like the eerie, quiet moments. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pro number 4 is Anguirus. This is a new pro that I have for this film. I'm not going to say much about him, but I love Anguirus. I think Anguirus is one of the most underrated Godzilla kaiju out there. I recently learned because of Wikizilla's kaiju profile on Anguirus. Thank you so much, Goji73, for voicing that episode. That apparently there have been multiple plans throughout the years to start an Anguirus-centric series of films. That would have been awesome. That would have been fucking awesome to see. And oh my God, do I wish those would have been made. But as it stands, I think Anguirus is such an underrated monster. I love Anguirus' design. I love playing as Anguirus whenever I play a Godzilla game, specifically the Atari Pipeworks games. But I love Anguirus' design, though the suit is questionable at times. Well, I'll get to that when I talk about the special effects. I love Anguirus in this movie. I think it's very appropriate for him to be Godzilla's first foe. He certainly does look like he can go toe to toe with Godzilla, certainly. And their fight is certainly very, very, very entertaining. So not much to say. I just really like Anguirus. I think it was a great idea to have Anguirus be Godzilla's first foe. And so speaking of which, pro number 5 is the fun monster battles. There's only 2. Well, there's the quick one at the very beginning, which lasts maybe 2 minutes. And then there's the big Royal Rumble in the middle of the film, which lasts maybe 10 minutes. There's not much beam spamming, which actually there's barely any at all because this was so early in the kaiju genre that they hadn't really invented that kind of thing. But I like this fight. Some people say that it's crap because it moves at such a high frame rate, which, okay, if you want to go for a super realistic version of this, yes, this fight is very, very, very wrong because monsters that size could not be able to move that fast. That is very, very, very true and is very, 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 very obvious. However, I will admit that I do like the final fight because of how nasty, brutal, and animalistic that it is. These two monsters are literally fighting tooth and nail. I think Godzilla fires his atomic ray 2 or 3 times. And I think 1 or 2 of those times, it barely even affected Anguirus. So this fight is very tooth and nail, and I really like it because it's very animalistic. It's very, very nasty. It's very brutal. It's very, like I said, tooth and nail. They're biting. They're smashing each other into buildings. They're clawing. They're swiping. They're kicking. They're punching. It's very, very ground and pound, tooth and nail. Little God, I can't ground and pound, whatever. It's a very good fight. I think it's very entertaining for what it is. Does it go on a little too long? No. I think it's just perfect. I think it's the perfect length. If it did go on any longer, though, I would say it's a little too long. But still, and it's not too short, in my opinion. So I like the final fight for Godzilla vs. Anguirus. It's just where it's placed. I think it's a little odd, but I'll get to that later. And let's see. Damn it. And, of course, pro number 6 is the special effects. They're decent. And I do think that this is the area where the film suffers the most. Because the special effects are clearly a downgrade. They are a massive downgrade. Now, the special effects were once again, of course, done by Eiji Tsuburaya. And hang on, let me. Yeah, they were. Yeah, done by Eiji Tsuburaya. Of course, the man who did the original Godzilla. And I still say that the effects are fairly decent for what the film, for the budget that the film had and for how rushed the film is. However, the effects are clearly a downgrade. The suits, we'll talk about the suits. The Anguirus suit, for what it is, I think it's fairly well constructed, but there are definitely moments where the suit shows its flaws. There's lots of moments where you can tell, like the fabric or the fabric or the rubber of the suit. It's very crinkly. It's very foldy, and it looks like there's patches of it that were just removed for whatever reason. So it kind of looks like the Anguirus has tumors all throughout his body, which that may. I'm not gonna say it was the point, but I guess I could say it makes sense because he was exposed to radiation. But it's just there's. Excuse me. There's moments where Anguirus' suit looks very lumpy, and it's not pretty. And also, Anguirus' jaw, when it's not a puppet, it's just a suit, or it's just the suit. Anguirus' lower jaw just hangs open like a fucking sock puppet. There's never a moment where it's closed, at least when it's not flapping around like a loose hinge. When Anguirus is just moving slowly or is standing still and moving around menacingly, his jaw just hangs open like a fucking sock puppet. It's almost laughable. But still, for what it is, Anguirus' suit looks good. So I don't really have any complaints about it and also because this was the first monster aside from Godzilla that Toho had made. So I'll cut him some slack. The Godzilla design for this movie, I can't remember the name of the design. Gyakushu Goji, which was used in, of course, Raids Again. Name comes from the movie's title, specifically the word Gyakushu, meaning counterattack, and Goji, of course, being Gojira. The suit is very similar to the Shodai Goji suit, which was, of course, the original suit used in 54. This suit is much slimmer appearance, which I'm pretty sure was just to give Haruo Nakajima a massive break because of the original suit's big problems, which I'll talk about in a minute. It was much slimmer in its build, and it had a much smaller head. And this lean look resulted from the need to make the suit more flexible in order to battle with Anguirus in the film. And the Gyakushu Goji suit featured movable eyes. However, a separate pair of legs, which were worn like boots ups of Godzilla's feet, which was also like with the Shodai suit, and also with the Shodai suit, a hand-operated puppet was used for close-ups of Godzilla's face. This puppet noticeably features teeth that protrude outward from the mouth, a feature that is not shared by the suit. So the Gyakushu Goji design, I won't be talking much about the Gigantus version, Smith Wesson, so sorry. I'll give a quick mention of it at the end of the video, but still. So the Gyakushu Goji design, I do like it. I like it. I like the head. I like the more dragon-esque appearance for Godzilla, and I also like that it clearly looks different because it showcases that this is indeed a different Godzilla. Whereas obviously the species would look similar, but kind of like with humans, we all look slightly different. That makes each other unique. I like that they kind of showcase that with the Godzilla designs. I just kind of wish, why did Godzilla's design, whatever, I'm not going to get into that. Hi, Legendary Goji. Still, I like the Legendary Goji, or not Legendary Goji. Well, I do like that, but I like the Gyakushu Goji. It's the hand puppets that I have an issue with. The hand puppets look terrible for both Godzilla and Anguirus. The crown of horns on Anguirus' head are so lopsided, and they're so spaced out, and they're so poorly put together, it's almost laughable. Anguirus has extremely thin jaws. They look almost like they're made out of just cardboard. The teeth are too small. The nose horn looks like it was supposed to be a bit more of a sharper curve, but it just looks like it was crunched down. So that's, again, it's almost laughable. And the Godzilla puppet just looks, when he's looking at the screen, he looks like he's just folding his mouth in to look like a goddamn sock puppet. And it's almost, actually, no, it is laughable. It looks like that. And he looks a little bit like a frog. The teeth is truly what kill it for me. And you can clearly see that they like molded it with the mouth open, so that they molded the teeth into it. So when it closed, the teeth bent. It just looks ridiculous, and it looks so bad. And it ruins the illusion of that being Godzilla's actual head on screen. Oh, God, the hand puppet is just terrible. But overall, the miniature sets are well made. The actual Godzilla suit and the Anguirus suit, for the most part, they're well made. The blue screen effects, so you can clearly tell that they're blue screen, they look acceptable. And overall, what? You just enjoying this? Overall, I would say the special effects, they're decent for what they are. They're flawed, and they're clearly rushed beyond belief. But still, for what they are and for what this movie's budget was, I still say that the special effects team did a decent job. Oh, yeah, that's another thing. Anguirus gets wings. That's a pretty, not really an infamous, but it's a known fact that, well, sort of unknown fact that how the suit actor got in and out of the suit was Anguirus' spiky carapace was removed so that Kazumi Tezuka could get inside the suit, and afterwards the carapace was attached back on. And as you might imagine, because this fight is very rumble and the tumble, there's a lot of physical activity involved in that. It was either string or it was some kind of glue, but the carapace would get knocked loose and it would move around when Anguirus would move around. There's lots of images of posters where you can clearly see that the carapace looks like a pair of wings and it looks ridiculous. So I'm glad they kind of dropped that. It seemed like they were building it up to be like Anguirus actually did have wings, so I'm glad that they dropped that. But I'm also disappointed that Anguirus was supposed to have a mouth projectile attack, but that was dropped, which is disappointing, but whatever. So again, overall, the effects are decent. They're clearly rushed, but for what they are, they're not too terrible. Now let's get into the cons of Godzilla Raids again. Oh boy. While I do say that the effects are decent, they are still incredibly rushed. There's lots of moments where you can see the strings on the jets and the tanks. Again, you can see lots of moments where Anguirus' shell is flopping around. The hand puppets look terrible. There's moments where you can see Anguirus and Godzilla's suit looks like they have pieces of the rubber missing, so they're all lumpy and tumorousy and it just looks terrible at times. The blue screen effects I definitely think are the worst effects in the film, in this entire film. They're just very, very, very noticeable. And it's painfully obvious that they're blue screen effects. And the miniature effects, or the miniature sets, while they're well made and they look good when they're destroyed, it's very obvious that they're miniatures because they're just kind of shot straight on. Kind of like with an issue that the X from Outer Space has, which I will be talking about very soon. Tease. But they're shot straight on, so you kind of lose a lot of the illusion that they're supposed to be, these monsters are supposed to be giant. Unless you really, really, really turn your brain off. But it's very obvious that these are just miniatures. Oh, thanks for the hair. Thanks for the compliment. I like my haircut. Yeah, the miniature sets they're well made, but you can clearly tell they're miniatures. And the suits, they're very rushed. Overall, the effects in this film overall is just very, very, very rushed. It's plain as day. You can almost taste it with this film, how rushed it is. Now, me, I'm somewhat used to it because I do really enjoy this movie. But one problem that this movie definitely has is that its pacing is pretty fucking terrible. Instead of the original Gojira, which isn't a very long film, it's only 97 minutes long. This movie is 82 minutes long. This movie flies by at Mach 5. Holy motherfucking shit. It flies by at Mach 5 for the first, I'd say about 40 minutes of the movie. After Anguirus is killed, there's about a 25-minute period of time when the movie drastically slows down. And it's all the stuff with Kobayashi and Tsukioka at the Hokkaido tuna cannery. And the pace is brought to a screeching halt, and it is so jarring to sit through. Now, again, I'm somewhat used to it because I like this movie, but I'm pretty sure the average moviegoer will be thinking, what the fuck is left to do? Anguirus is dead. Godzilla is moving around. Why aren't we focusing on Godzilla? Why are we focusing on these human characters? Yeah, I do agree that this movie is not paced very well. Yeah, some people do that too. So yeah, I do agree this movie is not paced very well. I'm gonna get rid of that because con number 3 says it's clearly rushed overall, but I already talked about that. So con number 3 is that it's clearly rushed overall, so I'll just leave that in there. Con number 4, as much as I love Anguirus, here Anguirus is a very bland monster. he is clearly just thrown in to give Godzilla something to fight. He has King Kong monster syndrome, kind of, because most of King Kong's monsters, if not all of King Kong's monsters, well, except for Kong Skull Island, but that's just because Kong Skull Island is a masterpiece. Mwah, 10 out of 10. Most of King Kong's monsters, they're just there to give Kong something to fight. And that's the same case with Anguirus here. He's only here to give Godzilla something to fight, and that's pretty damn lame. Though, again, this was Anguirus' first appearance, so I'll cut him a little bit of slack, but Godzilla clearly has a character in this film. It's pretty much just a big carryover from the original Gojira, but still, Godzilla has a character here. Anguirus doesn't really have much of a character. He's just a bland giant monster, which is kind of disappointing. So yeah, I don't like that Anguirus is a very bland monster in this movie. I love his design. I love his roar. And I love his fight, but it's just his character is very lacking in this film. Con number 5 is that this movie is way too short. I kind of already talked about it. I don't like short movies. This movie is a full 16 minutes shorter than its predecessor. Holy motherfucking shit. We could have had more monster fights. We could have had more destruction scenes. We could have had more of pretty much everything. This movie is so miserably short, and it's such a shame because this movie is so badly paced, but it's also so miserably short. And it's not a good mix. It's kind of like Batman the Killing Joke syndrome, where the movie is so short but so poorly paced, it just kind of makes it a trudge to sit through at times. But because this movie is so quickly paced for the majority of the thing, it feels like it's more like 45 minutes long. What the hell are you looking for? Am I going on a rant? So yeah, I don't like the fact that this movie is too short. You've heard me plenty of times, and I really don't like it when movies are too damn short, especially when they have a lot of goddamn missed potential. So there's that. And the last problem that I have is that the monster battle is poorly paced, or not paced, placed. It's placed in the film just in a strange spot. Now, admittedly, if you ask me, I can't think of any other place where I would put the monster fight. But still, well, again, you could have made this movie longer. What was I talking about? Oh, yeah. So I can't think of any other place where you could have put the monster fight between Godzilla and Anguirus, but still, if this movie was longer, they could have figured that out better. But that's another problem that I have with this movie's pacing is that once Godzilla's fight with Anguirus is done, the rest of the movie almost feels moot. Like, what the hell is the point now? All we have is just Godzilla. So what the hell? But still, I don't mind it that much. But I do agree that Godzilla's fight with Anguirus is very poorly placed. We could have had some more character development and some more build up to the monster fight before. I mean, if this movie was 90 minutes long, you could have had the movie progress a little bit more beforehand and have the monster fight take place 50 minutes into the film, and then the last half hour of the film, or the last 40 something minutes of the film, is the aftermath of that big fight and also the defeat of Godzilla, which that is pretty much what they go with in the movie structurally already at hand. But because the film is so short, the first 2 acts feel so quick, but then first half of the third act is so badly is just brought to a screeching halt. It's a problem. So I think Godzilla and Anguirus' fight could have been placed a little bit further into the film, at least in its current runtime. So with all that said, despite all of this movie's problems, I still do love this movie to absolute death. It is very flawed, yes. It's clearly a quickie sequel. It's a cash grab sequel, and nothing more and nothing less. But despite that, it's still one of my favorite Godzilla movies, and it is still even one of my favorite kaiju films, which is why I will be rating this movie objectively and personally. Objectively, I give it a 5.5 out of 10. It's very rushed. It's got a lot of problems, and it's clearly just a cash grab on the original Godzilla. However, personally, I really don't care. I give not the original. I give Godzilla Raids Again a perfect solid gold 10 out of 10. I love this movie to death. It's one of my favorite Godzilla movies and one of my favorite kaiju films. I could watch this any day and be thoroughly entertained. Oh my god, do I love this movie. This is Superman, Raiju Kaiju, not Venom. But thank you if you did see that. So push the comments down below. Let me know what you think. Hit the like button and hit the subscribe button. Share this video with your friends. And as always, go out and if you're going to make a monster movie that's a sequel, make it longer for Christ's sake. Jesus. Raiju Kaiju, I can't stand Carnage. So, bleh. And I will see you guys in the next one.